Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azawi. For more than a year, Iraqi Prime Minister Nuri al-Maliki never tired of emphasizing his security achievements. That apparent success gave his State of Law coalition a massive lead over his rivals in the provincial elections. But the murderous bombings of Bloody Wednesday last August and the double suicide bombing this week represent a heavy blow to his standing and may cost him dearly in next January's election. Ordinary Iraqis and experts alike are asking, why have security forces failed to secure high-value targets? Are Iraqi security forces penetrated by terrorists and insurgents? And should al-Maliki himself be held responsible for removing anti-blast concrete walls around ministries and government buildings?
147 dead and more than 500 injured in just a day. This is the most recent record of violence in Iraq. The attack on October 25th was the deadliest in 2 years. Suicide bombers drove truck bombs into the heart of Baghdad, one destroying the Ministry of Justice, the other badly damaging the headquarters of Baghdad's governor. The blasts came at a particularly sensitive time. In June, US forces withdrew from urban areas, and since then, violence has intensified, especially in northern Iraq and in Shia neighborhoods of Baghdad. Not long ago, it seemed that Iraq was over the worst. Before June, violence was steadily decreasing for 1.5 years. But now, after a recent string of attacks, many ask whether Iraqi security forces can actually ensure stability without being backed by US troops. If the answer is no, there are some major implications. The security situation will dictate the speed at which US forces are withdrawn from Iraq. If violence continues to increase, the US government may well reassess its plan for troop withdrawal. Moreover, the state of security in the months ahead is likely to affect the elections coming up in January. Some say they may have to be delayed. And Prime Minister Nuri al-Maliki has campaigned on law and order issues. His opponents are now expected to capitalize on his inability to maintain security. But the most important consequence may well be that the latest rise of violence will make it even more difficult for Iraq's ethnic and sectarian groups to find political common ground. Stephanie Dutzer for Inside Iraq.
To discuss the deteriorating security situation in Iraq, I'm joined from Baghdad by Mithal al-Alusi, head of the Iraqi Nation Party, and from Washington by Michael Corbin, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs, and from New York by Scott Ritter, former UN Weapons Inspector. Gentlemen, welcome to Inside Iraq. Mithal al-Alusi, let me start with you. This murderous double explosion that happened in Iraq is quite sophisticated. It has all the marks, perhaps, of foreign power, and yet it is domestically carried out. Today, the Iraqi government arrested 60 security officers. Perhaps they were either in cahoot or negligent of their duty. How do you look at this double bombings?
Well, first of all, I have to say that when we talk about terrorist actions, we talk about so complicated cases. This is one side, but of the other side, we didn't feel that the government, they do have any kind of platform or a vision how to deal with the terrorists and with the security issues in Iraq. More than that, they just react, and such kind of news what we are hearing, that the government, they are arresting or they are trying to start investigation with some officers, for my opinion, this is just a reaction trying to cover the need of the new election in Iraq.
Indeed, you are right. Perhaps the arrest or the questioning of the 60 officers might be a face-saving formula. Mr. Corbin, today I was struck by what the Iraqi Foreign Minister Hoshyar Zebari said. He said the US cannot wash its hand off the situation in Iraq. We expect more engagement from the American forces. What does that mean in light of the fact that SOFA stipulates American forces should go back to their barracks by June 30th? Is the Iraqi government speaking with two voices? Al-Maliki says we don't want them, and his foreign minister says we need them back?
First of all, I can't comment on what Toshiar Zabari, the foreign minister, said, Jassim, but what I can say first is that we strongly condemn these horrific bombings conducted by people with no respect for human life. The victims in this latest bombing were children, were passers-by on the street. We see no benefit that anyone could claim by trying to claim victory by conducting these kind of attacks. We are in partnership with the government of Iraq. We are working closely with the security forces. We're working closely with the government of Prime Minister Maliki to try and prevent this type of attack. The Iraqis have control of their cities since June 30. They have made enormous strides. What you see here is terrorists who have tried every means to cause havoc and destruction, moving from first targeting mosques and churches and minorities, then targeting innocent people in marketplaces, to now targeting government buildings where normal Iraqis work, where passers-by are being targeted. We don't see any strategy here by the insurgents. We see only bloody killing, and we find it despicable that anyone would seek to rush to claim credit for this type of attack.
I'm absolutely convinced that not only Iraqis but people worldwide share your condemnation of these murderous, bloody attacks. But Scott Ritter, the terrorists or the perpetrators of this double suicide, they crossed 6 checkpoints. Some of these checkpoints are very elaborate, and they may even have explosive sniffing equipment, and the drivers, they need badges. So surely there was a breach of security, and they had perhaps an inside help. Given what Mr. Corbyn said, do you expect these bombings to continue, given perhaps the lack of training or the inability of Iraqis to have access to intelligence?
Well, I mean, first of all, one cannot prejudge the outcome of an ongoing investigation. You know, hopefully, you know, the reasons why this attack took place will be rooted out, and those who did it will be dealt with. But let's talk about two, you know, principal issues here. One, when you speak of security forces, whether it be army or police of any nation, they have to have in order to be effective, they have to have a common shared vision of what this nation is. There is no singular Iraqi nation today. We have a very broken nation state that's struggling to define itself in the post-Saddam era. And as a result, security forces don't represent, you know, one point of view. They represent several. And once you're that divided, it's very easy for terrorist organizations or insurgencies to exploit this division and carry out the kind of attacks we've seen. So, of course, we're going to see more of these attacks. They can't be stopped until Iraq learns to govern itself with a single voice. And this is where the United States needs to come in. This is not a military solution. The more we talk about training security forces, providing them with intelligence, the more we reinforce failure. We need to de-emphasize the military, and the foreign minister is correct. The United States cannot wash its hands of Iraq, but the United States can't reinforce failure. It's high time the United States reach out to Iraq's neighbors, Syria, Iran, Turkey, and use the Syrian influence with the Sunnis, the Turkish concern about the Kurds, and the Iranian influence with the Shia to come up with a multilateral mechanism to resolve these deep-seated ethnic issues
that is a tall order, Scott Ritter. By all means, let me get a brief comment from Mr. Corbyn before I go to Mithal. Go ahead, Mr. Corbyn.
Well, first of all, I agree with Scott that we have to have a broader relationship, and we do have a broader relationship. We have a relationship that's based on economics, as we saw with the Business and Investment Conference in Washington last week. We have a partnership in other areas that's growing stronger, education and health. What I would also say is that having just spent almost a year in Baghdad, the sectarian divisions of 2006 and 2007, the problems in different parts of the security forces, we no longer see those. There are still, of course, remnants, but the professionalism. Iraqis in the street now have more confidence in their own security forces. Our combat troops left the cities in June of this year. We continue to see a reduction in violence. What I argue strongly is we're seeing terrorists using different tactics. Somebody said high-value targets earlier. These ministries weren't high-value targets. They were what we call soft targets. They were ministries that had to be open to the public.
But then again, Mr. Corbyn, they are a symbol of the Iraqi government, and those terrorist attacks are meant to strike at the very heart of the Iraqi symbol. We'll get to that point later on. But let me go to Mithal. There are two theories, Mithal Alusi, the reason behind these suicide bombings. One is to create chaos and embarrass the Iraqi government. The other one is, which is what I would like you to comment on, is that it is meant to embarrass al-Maliki himself for abandoning his erstwhile allies, primarily the Iraqi National Alliance.
Well, I must come back to the main point, which I really believe that even the United States of America, with all of the institutions they got, the terrorists, they did succeed to attack America, and they did succeed to attack many European states. But in general, what we need here in Iraq, we need to start to build the Iraqi institution. What we need here to start to go out of the propaganda issues. What we need here to start to believe in our citizen and in our nation and to serve the people. We still reaction in very naive and simple ways. And this is not the way how to stop terrorists, and this is not the way how to stop.
Are you saying the Iraqi government is failing to do the proper things? Is that what? Are you casting doubt on the whole structure of the Iraqi government and its vision for the future?
For sure, Mr. Maliki government, they didn't succeed to provide service. They didn't succeed to push the economy. They didn't succeed to help in the oil industry. They didn't succeed to find any platform or vision for the education and for the healthy sectors. They didn't succeed in different way. So the security is part of the result of this government. And we are so sorry to have heard it repeatedly. From the American side, we are helping the Iraqi government and we are supporting the Iraqi government. We are asking our American friends, you need to support the Iraqi political process and the democratic process. We need to support the Iraqi
Let
economic
me give a chance
and
to
education.
Mr. Corbyn to answer that. Go ahead. Your aid and your help is going in the wrong direction. That's what he's saying.
I agree with Mithal that we have to build institutions. I agree that we have to help with education and health. But what we see is an Iraqi government that is capable now of making decisions. We're in partnership with the Iraqi government. When the UN mandate ended at the end of 2008, it was a significant step forward for Iraqi institutions. Iraq now can deal with its neighbors. Iraq is in a position where we have a partnership on economic issues. Oil, we've had one bid round for international oil companies to come into Iraq. We were preparing for another. We see many elements where the Iraqi government and Iraqi institutions, such as the very Ministry of Justice that was
Scott,
targeted.
are you laughing or sniggering or shaking your head?
I would say that the U.S. government is going to try and put a positive spin on failed policy every single time. There is no Iraqi government. We have a parliament that's paralyzed. They can't pass anything meaningful in the way of laws. The oil law is stymied. We have elections coming up. Is it going to be open list, closed list? What are the ramifications of this? We just had a bid on oil. BP put out $4 bid and immediately tracked it down to $2. There's corruption rampant in Iraq as we speak. None of these issues are being addressed so long as we pretend that U.S. policy is heading in the right direction. We need to stop defending the failures of the past and recognize that the only way to give Iraq the help it truly needs is to come up with a new methodology. And again, the United States cannot be the only person playing here. We say we're engaged
that
with
being the case, Scott Rutter, let me tell you what the Iraqi foreign minister said, Hoshyar Zebari. He's calling for a UN envoy to come to Iraq to investigate the failure of neighboring countries to adhere to their commitments to stabilize Iraq. I understand that's what you said, and Mr. Corbyn also said that the U.S. has documented the foreign interference in Iraq, primarily Iran and perhaps even Syria. What good will it do to send a UN envoy to come to Iraq to investigate supposedly the neighboring countries' non-adherence to stabilize Iraq, Scott?
This is an American problem. The United States invaded Iraq. The United States broke Iraq. We need to take responsibility for our actions. And therefore, rather than turning to the United Nations for a solution, why don't we send our diplomats to Damascus, send our diplomats to Tehran, send our diplomats to Ankara, and get the three neighbors that are the major players for the future stability of Iraq to sit down together and come up with a unified plan. Instead, we continue to search for scapegoats, blame Syria, blame Iran, blame everybody but ourselves. We broke it. We need to fix it.
If the idea of these suicide bombings is to derail the next election in January, perhaps this is one of the reasons behind them. The Iraqi politicians themselves are doing a great job on their own to derail this election by not agreeing about Kirkuk and the election law.
Well, we have a democratic system. The parties, they have the right to say what they believe. We need time in the Iraqi parliament, and we will have the law. This is not the point. It will be very dangerous if we will have it just in one day, if we will have it just in 1 week, if everybody did agree with it. I think this is a good proof that we are having a democratic process and we are respecting the democratic mechanism. But let me go back to the Iranian influence and the Syrian influence. No one in Iraq will accept to hear that Iran and Syria, they have to find the solution for the Iraqi security or for the Iraqi future. Iran, they have built terrorists, they are supporting them and the militia with weapons, and they are killing a human being. Iran part of the international terrorist actions, and we have many proofs here in Iraq regarding Iran and Syria. So we are not accepting such kind to have Iraq as a part of the Iranian-Syrian game, and we are not ready.
We will see
to
whether the
any kind of
Iraqis by
games.
themselves, with the help of the Americans, will be able to stem and expunge the influence of Iran in Iraq. That has not happened so far. Meanwhile, what happened is that General Lanza in Iraq, Mr. Corbyn, said the Iraqis are doing exactly everything right. They are doing a great job. If that is the case, Mr. Corbyn, how come these bombings keep happening?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I've served 25 years in the Middle East, and the Iraqi government is standing up for itself. There is progress. I have to disagree with Scott on this. We had provincial elections in January that were credible, that were free of violence, and that actually saw established politicians removed from office. We saw participation. We just saw the Council of Representatives pass amendments to an investment law. There is progress. What we see is a partnership with the Arab government of Iraq, the consensus government of Iraq that will lead to cooperation with the region. We see Iraq taking its lead. We can't, and Scott, I think this is a look to the past rather than the future. Iraq will stand up on its own as it is doing, and it will be capable of dealing with its neighbors. It has asked the UN for assistance, and we welcome the fact that the Secretary General announced yesterday that he's sending an envoy to look into the security and sovereignty of Iraq. We see that the terrorists and insurgents continue to look for every means to attack innocent civilians, to try and sow the sectarian divides that were left behind in 2007. There is an Iraqi nationalism. There is, in this predominantly Arab country, there is an idea of Iraq, and we see that the future, in partnership and on the institutions that are being built, offers promise.
Scott Ritter, Ahmed Chalabi is reported to have said that public pressure as well as the U.S. government has forced the Iraqi government to accept back senior former Ba'ath general into senior positions. Is this a belated acknowledgement for the role played by Paul Bremer for disbanding the Iraqi army, that this terrible mistake, what we are seeing right now, would not have happened had the Iraqi army been kept intact after the war?
Well, I mean, I think there's widespread acknowledgement that many failures were made by the United States in the lead up to and the immediate aftermath of the invasion and occupation of Iraq, especially when it came to retaining and reinforcing institutions that are necessary for viable government and governance of a nation, especially when you eliminate the government as we did. You know, it's high time Ahmed Chalabi and others stop talking about Ba'athists and start talking about Iraqis. The bottom line is there's a large segment of the Iraqi society, the Sunni population, that must be fully integrated into whatever future government system Iraq has. And to sit there and continuously say that you must isolate people who were somehow involved in 30 years of Iraqi history is absurd in the extreme. Look, the bottom line is this. I don't think anybody here on your show today wishes ill for Iraq. I certainly hope that things work out. But the bottom line is I don't see anything new coming out of Washington, D.C. or out of the Iraqi government that demonstrates that they have this situation in control. And I'm very afraid that we're going to be here in a year's time having the exact same debate about the exact same issues because nothing that's being put out there right now is a solution. The Iraqi government cannot govern. Yeah, sure, you get government on the side, you get government on the margins, but on the big issues of peace and stability, it's incapable of providing this because it does not speak with a single voice that represents Shia, Kurd, and Sunni concerns as a singular Iraqi concern. Don't talk about Iraqi nationalism until you resolve the issue of Sunni tribalism, Shia sectarianism, and Kurdish ethnicity.
Mithal al-Alusi, last question to you. Has al-Maliki made a mistake by removing these anti-blast concrete walls from around the ministries?
I think it was a mistake trying to use the good situation for his own benefit for the election. He was trying to say, look, I have done it, I did succeed. I think we have to look for our interests, for the human being, and to deal with the issues through professional level. I think it was a mistake, yeah, and really we have to inform our people, to inform the citizen about the real problems and not to play games with them.
Mr. Corbyn, many military as well as political analysts, they said the consequences of these continuous blasts is that the U.S. will stay in Iraq for many years to come. Will these explosions and murderous attacks delay the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq?
As President Obama said to the Prime Minister when Prime Minister Maliki was here last week, we are going to remain with our timetable. The issue here is that the terrorists have failed to reignite sectarian violence. Even when they bombed mosques and churches, they've failed to end the economy when they bombed the oil pipelines. And now they will fail when they try and attack these ministries. I was back in Baghdad this weekend, and I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs where the Minister Zabari, as you mentioned, has reopened his office. The Foreign Ministry is back in business after an enormous tragedy, we really mourn the loss there. We have a way forward. The strategic framework agreement is partnership. We believe the elections will take place. The participation of the different sectors of Iraqi society is vital, as Scott says, but we need to look to the future. Since you mentioned Scott, he has the last word. Do you share his optimism, Scott?
I want to. I mean, I truly do. Having invested so much of my life in Iraq and trying to create, the conditions for Iraq to be a meaningful member of the international community, the last thing you want to wish on a nation with such deep culture and with such wonderful traditions and such a wonderful people is the kind of sorrow and tragedy that they're seeing today. I just hope, I'm not in Washington, D.C. I don't sit in on these meetings, and I hope Mr. Corbyn is right, that there is a vision, that they are forward-looking, and that they are dealing with these issues. I'm just fearful that, as it has occurred in the past, that sometimes the rhetoric doesn't match the reality. And again, tragically, I'm afraid we're going to be here in a year's time talking about the exact same cycle of violence and tragic consequences for the people of Iraq. I hope I'm wrong.
Scott Ritter, Michael Corbyn, Mithal al-Alusi. Gentlemen, thank you for being guests on Inside Iraq.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To watch the show online, please go to aljazeera.net/English. We have reached the end of this show. Join me next week when we take another look inside Iraq. Until then, have a great week.